Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your co-host for today, Mike Bailey, along with Ellen DePlacido. And good afternoon, Ellen.
Good afternoon,
Hey,
Mike.
the last couple of times we had kind of walked around the garden, but this time of year we'd like to say a little bit about planting trees and shrubs, don't we? All right.
That's right.
That's
hmm
right. So we're going to do that today. And I'm hoping
Okay.
that, I don't overwhelm you with some of my opinions, okay? So,
That's
but we
okay.
want to talk about, what's important for planning and planting and, and
hmm
some of the common mistakes that people made when it comes to trees and shrubs. So,
Okay.
Ellen, what do you want to add to that whole process?
Well, I think a couple common mistakes people make is when they're selecting a tree. You want to make sure that you select the proper tree and the planting site where you're sure that it's going to be an asset to your property. Because if you don't do that, it's going to end up being a problem. And remember, trees and shrubs are expensive. So this is an investment. Like Mike said, it's kind of like a financial investment. Some are positive and some can be very negative. So you want to make sure you do your research before you spend the money.
Yeah, you're right. And some of that research can be pretty easy.
hmm
Like I tell people all the time. Like I even told my son who bought a house, up in Buffalo without any kind of trees and shrubs on the property. Okay, it was an older house, and they pulled them all out. Okay, he says, what should I plant? I says, why don't you walk around the neighborhood and find out what's doing well. Okay, and see
hmm
what you like. See how they design things. See some of the things that you don't like. Some of the mistakes that they might have made. And
hmm
I can rattle off a string here, and I'll share with some. Wrong tree, wrong, too big, too wide, wrong location, too close to the house, utility wires, and then they go ahead and trim things and ruin the tree. The roots are coming
hmm
to the surface, they're making a mess, the seed pods and nuts, all that other stuff. And then you got raky leaves. Now the trees have gotten so big as I don't have any more sunshine. Okay, their roots are buckling my driveway and my sidewalks, and and it goes. The list goes on and on and on and on. Okay, and one
hmm
of the things that really you have to be careful about is some people don't maintain trees and shrubs. They seem to be afraid to trim them. Okay, to trim off
hmm
some branches, etc. And you can't do that. You have to be, think about that. It's easy. It's not difficult. Okay,
hmm
you know, and fall's a wonderful time to do all this work. Okay, to or at least if you don't want to plant them in the fall, that's fine because you can't find the right trees and stuff like that. And I completely
hmm
understand. But do some of your groundwork, okay, in the fall so that you know what's going on. So that you can address it real quick in the spring. So, you
Okay.
know, what do you want to add here, Ellen?
Well, I guess you want to ask people what are they looking for? Are they looking for a larger tree that will look good and provide shade, but not make a mess? Not drop all those leaves and the seed pods and all that. Or do they just want some smaller trees that add some color and character to their property? Maybe they want to buy and plant some shrubs um, that will help keep their property attractive. And it's always good you can use shrubs to hide like eyesores like meters and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And shrubs are good for privacy too. You can plant those along the side of your property and kind of have, instead of having a wooden fence, have a privacy screen made of trees and shrubs. So think about that when you're surveying your property. What do you really want to do? So remember that plants require space. You have to determine how big are they going to get? How big will the crown of that tree become? Is it going to get in the way of your electrical wires and your roof and all that kind of stuff? Do you need any special soil or moisture requirements for the tree that you're planting? And are there growing obstacles that you need to consider? Again, those overhead wires, how close are they going to be to the buildings? What about the streets and sidewalks? And one thing you really want to be conscious of is your neighbor's property. Don't infringe on your neighbor's property. Um, you might even want to talk to your neighbor before you plant to make sure you're not planting it too close to his property.
Yeah, because if you have a vegetable garden right along the side, and he comes up and
hmm
plants a big tall shade tree, directly on the other
Right.
side of the property line. Okay, the vegetable garden is not going to have much longevity to it at all, because that's
Mhm.
going to
Mhm.
get phased out through the shade. So
Right.
and you got to think about fruit and seed pods and tree strength and longevity, etc. Because some trees don't live really long time. Okay,
Mhm.
poplars in particular, and even these Bradford pears that everybody likes so much, they'll get to a certain level of maturity, and then the branches will start to break. In fact, some
Mhm.
states have actually banned planting of Bradford pears because they're an invasive tree, and it's a non-native invasive, and it really kind of does make a mess. Also, as it gets older, even though they are beautiful when they're younger. Uh,
Mhm.
so, I mean, I've I've made some mistakes.
No.
I admit it. Yeah, you go back, you think about the little seedlings that your children have brought home from school in these little cups. Yeah, yeah, and they need a place to grow,
Uh-huh.
so you don't think about it. You just kind of plop it in the ground. Again, you forget that things probably going to grow. You're not going to hit it with the mower and mow it over. Probably not. Okay, you're going to be careful of it. So you got to think about what's going to happen. I mean, I have a silver maple in my yard right now that. What was I ever thinking? Okay, and it was one of those things that came home from school. How
Mm.
I wasn't
Mhm.
thinking, obviously. But I actually did a couple good things though too. I had my wife and I wanted to get a nice weeping cherry, so we bought one and we put it away from the house in a nice location where it had the room to grow, and that thing has just been absolutely gorgeous, and it's been very hardy.
Good.
It's
Mhm.
been hardy until about 5 or 6 years ago when we had those really two cold winters back to back, and that
Oh.
really hasn't
Uh-huh.
recovered, and we're really you know torn about probably going to have to tear this thing out and put in a new
Mm.
one. And the other thing about weeping cherries is you know if you go to the nursery, you'll pay $200 for one that's nice and tall. Okay, and
Mhm.
you'll pay maybe $130 for something that's quite a bit shorter. They're not going to grow taller. Okay, that
Oh,
those
okay.
weeping branches are grafted onto that trunk. That trunk is not going to get any taller. That's the height of the tree, except for a few more feet, or a foot and a half, that there's some of the branches as they flow are going to take up. So you got to think about things like that.
Mhm.
So, Ellen, I think we've kind of used up our time for today. So we're going to pick up on this topic, in our next session. So hope you're
Okay.
hope you're with us then. Okay, bye bye.
Bye.